Okay, and we may be live. Alrighty, let me just share the link to a few people that may be interested. Very unlikely, but let's try. Alright, this is my first stream, so I have no idea how to get my video link. Where it could be, Oh, come on. I'll go back to YouTube, maybe. And if I go into my channel, yeah, that looks like a link that could be shared. Let's do that then. Alright. Right. That's it. So let's begin. Right. So what I wanted to do today, and this is completely stupid idea, probably. I wanted to do some programming, some live programming without any preparation really. In a language that I don't know very well, but I like it. Just don't know it very well. I'm not really comfortable in it yet. In a framework that I very much like, but again, I don't know it almost at all. Um, so that sounds like a wonderful idea straight out of the box, right? But it's a language that I recently discovered, and just even though I still feel like a noob in it, I just can't help but enjoy every single second that I'm working in it. So I wanted to show it to the world a little bit, and hopefully show it to more people. Um, and hopefully, kind of optimistic light. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, especially nowadays at work, I get to spend every day in a terrible, horrible programming language called Go. Maybe you've heard of it. For your sanity, I hope you have not, because it's the most stupid programming language ever created. And every second I spend in Go, I'm just wishing that I could just be working in Elixir. That's the name, by the way. I should have probably mentioned that at the beginning. In Elixir and in Phoenix. So Elixir. Elixir lang. Here we go. That's it. So, what's so special about Elixir, right? And why should you use it? Well, I think it's a very mature programming language, and it's while it is kind of similar to the ones that you use nowadays every day, like the imperative programming languages, it's also not an imperative programming language. It's actually a functional language, as you can see here in the first paragraph, right? And in the past, anytime I tried any sort of functional programming language, I can remember I tried Lisp a little bit. I had a look at a few others. But anytime I looked at functional programming language, I always felt like, oh, Jesus Christ, I should have paid more attention in math classes in university because I've got no idea what I'm doing. But that's not the case in Elixir, right? Elixir looks and feels like Ruby, which is a good thing. I mean, if you look at the syntax, right? Well, maybe not in these cases here. It looks very much like Ruby. The syntax is inspired by Ruby, and that's a good thing because Ruby is just a wonderful, beautiful language. You may disagree with me, but you're definitely right to be wrong. Um, so it is functional language, but with the beautiful, approachable syntax of the more traditional imperative programming languages. And it still packs a lot of the functional aspects that you would be searching for in traditional functional programming languages, things like immutable, well, I can't really call them variables, right? So like immutable state or like just constants, right? There's kind of no no variables, there's just constants, right? And it packs things like pattern matching, which, oh my gosh, is that an amazing thing that takes a little bit of getting used to, honestly. But once you get used to it, it feels amazing because with pattern matching, right? There's a couple of different ways that you can use pattern matching. The one that you will probably use the most is not the one that's showed here in the guide and the getting started guide, but it's more like when you've got function overloading in traditional programming languages, except of Go, because Go cannot do anything well, so it cannot also do method overloading. Um, and so pattern matching is kind of like method overloading on steroids. I mean, it can do more than that, but in the case of function calling, you can in the function header, you can extract or destruct structures and assign variables or constants immediately in the function header, right? And if the struct that is being passed into the function doesn't even contain the keys that you're requesting, then the function itself will not even be called. Or you can, pattern match on specific value, and we're gonna probably see that in the demo. Another thing that should be mentioned before we begin is that Elixir is built on the Erlang virtual machine and runs in the virtual machine. And I don't want to get into too deep introduction really, but like when I was looking into and reading the first bits about Erlang and Elixir, and I was like, you've got Java, right? And that also runs in virtual machine. And when I was doing Java development, I've done quite a bit of it. I always like the virtual machine for me just it did not really mean anything. Like there was no I did not feel any benefit of. I always felt like okay, Java it's running in a virtual machine. It's like it's a fact. What does it bring me as a benefit? I don't know. It runs on other platforms. Ooh, big deal. Other languages are compiled for other platforms. Um, but in case of Erlang virtual machine, what Erlang virtual machine does, it provides you so many benefits out of the box. Things like very lightweight processes, like you can literally spawn a million processes on a single machine with just a few seconds of time. Maybe even not these few seconds, right? It offers you messaging between processes. So if you're spawning that many processes, you probably want some kind of method of communicating between those. It offers you, and I would really want to see this in deployment, right? I haven't had the opportunity to do this, but it offers you to connect multiple physical machines. The virtual machines running on physical machines into massive cluster, and basically do advanced things like hot deployment and code reload while the application is still running, uh, while updating both the code and updating the state that's already in the existing code or created by the existing code. And I was just like, wow, that's amazing. Why are we wasting time with Kubernetes and all of these cool but complicated things when all of these things, all of those things were already solved in Erlang like, I don't know, 20 years ago? Geez. So yeah, it's very intriguing language, and I would definitely encourage everybody to have a look into it because it's not very well known language, but I feel that's something that should definitely be rectified. And now the second part of the puzzle for today, and I'm really gonna try to make it short, is a Phoenix, which is a framework that for me personally is interesting from probably one incredible reason. So when you're moving between languages, especially as often as I am, not by choice, but because my company really believes in the motto that once you know one language, you know them all. So in the past 3 years, I've moved between like 5 or 6 different programming languages and 5 or 6 different frameworks, right? And all of those frameworks, like you've got Spring Boot, you've got Laravel, you've got, I don't know, you've got Vapor, you've got Ruby on Rails, you've got whatever. you've got nothing in Go because nothing works in there. Uh, all of those feel kind of similar. You always have your controllers, you've got your models, you've got, you're rendering your HTML with some kind of templating engine. You can just do API only with some kind of just, JSON raw output. All of that feels same. And Phoenix does not. I mean, it does. It can do all of those things that I just mentioned, right? When you're beginning with Phoenix, that's probably what you're gonna do at the beginning. But that's just one part of Phoenix out of, I would say, like three different approaches, at least three different approaches that Phoenix gives you. So one would be the traditional MVC, right? And then MVC is good, it's fine, but it was, fine also like 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it doesn't deal with static data, with dynamic data. It deals with static, it doesn't deal with dynamic data and, data updates. But then you've got second thing. And don't get me wrong, right? I know that Rails and Laravel and Spring Boot, they all do support WebSockets, but in none of those frameworks do WebSockets feel like a first-class citizen. But in Phoenix, WebSocket implementation feels just right. It feels like this is given the same amount of attention, care, and detail as the traditional MVC. And then you've got very recently, I think a couple of months ago, we've got this new feature called Phoenix LiveView, and that's one thing that we will be actually using today for the large part of the demo, which combines the liveliness of WebSockets and Phoenix channels in the background, and it allows you to do Whew. Basically, it allows you to do like live updates in the browser without you having to write any piece of JavaScript. Which, I mean, anytime you can avoid JavaScript, that's a bonus point in my book. What it does, it renders the page on the server. It keeps the state just like your React and your views, and if you hate yourself, your Angulars, would do in your browser. It keeps the state on the server, which at first feels scary. Like, hey, can I really handle it? Does it scale? But it does. Your server has plenty of resources, and Phoenix and Elixir are plenty efficient, so that you can keep the state for all of your clients on the server. And through WebSockets, you can, well, not you, but Phoenix will just keep sending the diffs between what is displayed and what should be displayed transparently without you having to do anything into the browser. And it feels like magic. It feels like, again, if you're moving from Spring Boot to Laravel to Ruby on Rails to, I don't know, whatever, Vapor, it really feels the same. Like they all have the same features, but LiveView is something that I've never seen anywhere anywhere else, right? So what we're gonna try to do today, or what I'm gonna try to do today, and I hope I'm not gonna fail terribly, is I'm gonna try to build. Right. I don't know if this was like a Czech specific thing, but when I was a teenager, I spent just a tremendous amount of time on like web chats. Like, I guess you could just say that, people were spending time on IRC and things like that. I was spending my time on web chat. We had a room there with a couple of friends and where we were helping people to build their web pages. Um, and I've got very fond memories of that. Like you've got website where you create chat rooms, and in those chat rooms you chat in, well, of course, real time. But at that time, actually, it was not real time. You send a message and you saw it appear in like 10 seconds later or 15 seconds later, right? Because back in those days, there was no real time on the web. Gmail was not a thing, right? So imagine that kind of time period. Um, and you just waited until until the meta tag for refresh the chat view. So yeah, that was like 10-second update. We're gonna try to do a little bit better today. I hope I can not fail terribly. We'll see. Why don't we start with generating a new project? So that's gonna be let's do this thing where we're gonna be invoking Mix, which is a package manager, and I guess you would call it also task runner for Elixir. We're gonna be invoking the phx.new command, and we're gonna be naming the project Convo, and we're gonna be saying that we want it to be a live project. So let's run that, and let's also install dependencies, because why not? That's something we will need anyway, and I'm just gonna open another terminal right here, and already gonna start code. So what we ended up here with is, of course, the empty project. Let's arrange the windows somehow like this, right? And when you end up with a fresh Phoenix project, you're gonna get your mix.exs file, which contains details about your project details and the dependencies that it needs for running. You're going to end up with a couple of folders. Most notably, we're going to be operating in the libconvo and libconvo web. Convo is going to be the name of our project. Convo should contain your business logic, everything that's let's say, yeah, business logic and things that are related to your database, but not like querying, or not fetching things or connecting to the database itself. All right, I take it back. We're gonna see how the separation goes better. But in Convo Web is definitely gonna be everything that's separate that's dedicated to the web itself. And so that's gonna be your views, or live views in our case. For the most part, there's gonna be a couple of traditional views. Controllers, we're gonna have a couple of those, but we're not gonna actually write any of those. Then you've got a private folder where you've got things like migrations. You're gonna see those soon. And speaking of migrations, let me just wipe the old database that I was using for a little bit of testing. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I did not really do any preparation for this, or rather, I don't have any any working code ready. So if something goes wrong, we are in this trouble together, my old friend. But I do have some old DB from testing, so let me just drop that one down. Maybe I can just actually run mix ecto destroy, was it? Let's run the help command. So you can see some instructions here. It's a compilation already running, and something is going terribly wrong already. That's always nice. Let's start again. Let's get the dependencies with deps get, and let's compile them with deps compile. Let's see if that works better. Compiling. All right, and I'm not sure what the tasks are. I think, how do you query for the tasks? Mix help, mix help. All right, so mix, we want to drop the old database. That would be mix ecto reset. Okay, that's it. So mix ecto reset. Ecto is the ORM system, the database mapping system in that's used by default in Phoenix. So we're gonna be definitely using a lot of that. Right, so we've got fresh database ready, probably. Let's check. There should be convo dev, and it should be empty as it is. Nice. So let's try to run the project with IEX. I'm gonna load, IEX is like the equivalent of IRB in Ruby, so it's the interactive console. I prefer to run my server with IEX, but you don't need to actually use that. You can just run the server directly, but I prefer to have it. And in IEX, I already load mix and phx server. Mix will load all the dependencies, phx server will make sure that our web server is running, and because it is, we should be able to see the welcome page on localhost on port 4000. Here we go. Now, this is the welcome page, and this is basically like any other start page of any other framework we've seen, except it's not, because we've got this really cool monitoring dashboard here, where you can see the state of your application in real time. You can see some metrics. You can do request logger, which if I, let's say, refresh the page, I can immediately see in the request logger that somebody, or probably me, requested the root page, and also output that it generated. I can always drop into console as well, but it's cool to have it here. I can see applications, which is combinations of the dependencies that I included in in the project and the things that are generally required to run. You've got processes. These are like, low-level Erlang things that I not only will not explain, also can't explain in such a detail that I would want to. ETS I can, which is like I think that's part of OTP, which is when you're talking about Erlang, you're mostly talking about Erlang plus OTP. The OTP being the Open Telecom Protocol. What was it? It's well, of course I can find it. I can't find it like that. I need to search for also Erlang OTP, Open Telecom Platform, not protocol, platform. Open Telecom Platform. It's a collection of tools and ways that allow you to write code that has basically 100% uptime. And if it crashes, it can auto recover. Or yeah, it's the Erlang platform was created by Ericsson because they needed something that's super stable, that can run phone systems, which you probably don't want your telephone system to crash ever at all. But you can see, by the way, two things that I'm going to quickly enable here in the live dashboard. Two things are disabled. I would say the two most interesting things, actually, the OS data and the ectostats. So there's short instructions how to enable those, and just so let's just initially, before we do any change, let's initialize the Git repository. Let's do this stupid thing that I just do every time. Gitmoji install. Oh, command failed. Interesting. That's amazing. Everything's going well. Anyway, so let's just do final commit then with Gitmoji, and let's do initial commit. Everything is working perfectly. Wow, Jesus Christ! I've never had that many problems. And that's the Murphy's law, right? That's just anytime you're showing anything to anybody, essentially everything will go wrong. Is it just because I forgot to do git add? Maybe. No, it's just throwing random errors though. Whatever. I don't even care. Anyway, let's go enabling the live dashboard things. So to enable the OS data, that's the simpler one. We just need to add extra application here called OSMon. And if we restart the server, which normally we don't need to restart, it has definitely live reload and hard reload and all those cool things. But if you're modifying the mix.exs file, then you do need to unfortunately restart the server. Oh well. So that's one thing enabled. The ectostats, which is the database statistics, that's a little bit more complicated, but not really. So it needs, it wants us to add extra dependency. It says the version should be 0.2. I disagree because that's definitely not the latest one. So let's check what's the latest one. That's gonna be something like 0.6, I guess. Yeah, 0.6.4. So let's fetch that one. And once we have the dependency, then let's modify our router file. And let's say here that we want to add ecto repos convo.repo. Again, we modified the mix.exs file. So let's, well, we even add dependency this time. So let's actually compile the dependency. And let's check our dashboard, and we've got repo statistics, and this is a cool one because you can see like index size, and I think there was slow query or something like that. Basically, these are related to what kind of database system you use. We're gonna be using Postgres here, so maybe slow query is actually not something that I can find here, but yeah, you can find all sorts of various database-related statistics here. So useful, and again, provided for free by the framework. Now, another thing that I typically want to include is to get static analyzer going. which there is one called Credo. We can see static code analysis tool with focus on code consistency and teaching. Teaching sounds good to me, so let's add it as another dependency. But this time, actually, if you check the documentation, it correctly mentions that you probably don't really need this in at runtime because why would you? So let's adjust the statement we get. Let's add dependency only for dev and test environments, and we don't need it at runtime. Let's fetch that. Let's do mix credo config to generate the default configuration file. I think the compilation for credo takes quite a while. You can also integrate Credo into Visual Studio Code with extension. But Jesus Christ, is that extension buggy as heck? That's at least the one that I'm using, which is Elixir Linter Credo. I think it's the most popular one. Oh no, it's not the most popular one. Haha. Maybe I should try one of those different ones because Jesus Christ, this one is just annoying. Sometimes it just gets bugged out and almost unusable. Anyhow. Let's hope against all odds that it will actually be working today. And I would say we've got, just the very basic dependencies and the basic configuration done. So let's add that. Dependencies. Right. Now we are not finished with doing dependencies though, because the first thing you probably want to do on any sort of project would be you want to start with authentication. At least I want to. I don't know. Sometimes I've got some coworkers that just want to do authentication at the very last, and I just find it super confusing. It's the thing that I want to have done, at the very beginning, because typically everything else is related to authentication. And thankfully, again, Phoenix has your back here. So if you search for Phoenix Gen, I think it's Phoenix Gen off, you're gonna find an authentication system generator for Phoenix 1.5. 1.5 because in the future it's not gonna be required. It's gonna be integrated into base Phoenix. That's in Phoenix 1.6 based on what I heard. And this is cool because it gives you the best practices. For is there installation? There is no installation instructions. Interesting. Interesting. It gives you very cool, standards. It gives you such a big test coverage, which we can actually adjust a little bit. But yeah, we definitely don't need that generator on runtime, I think. That would make sense to me. Yeah, but it doesn't say anything in here though. Strange. Let's try like this though. So fetching dependencies, then fetching dependencies, region mix steps get just to check it's really there. Now if we run mix help, you should see a couple more tasks here. And we don't, so maybe I was wrong and we should not do the runtime thing. I'm just making my life much more complicated for myself than it would need to be. Let's check again, mix help. Mix speech. It's not here, right? Also think if I try running it, it's just not gonna work. It wasn't compiled. That's why it was not there. All right. Wonderful. So I ran the command to generate authentication schema, and it's gonna, let me just explain quickly. It's gonna generate context called accounts. In the context accounts, it's gonna create entity called user and store it in database table users. That's all the parameters here. And it creates a lot of things, right? It creates, and we're gonna start there, database migration to create a table. That's going to be create user of table. We got table users and table users tokens. Users identified by email, hash password, confirm that. And then you can see already the best practices here, right? When you start doing users table and you you're doing email, typically you're just gonna do varchar or you're gonna do string. Not here. They choose CI text. What is CI text? Well, it's something that actually makes sense, right? If you look at the documentation for CI text, it's case insensitive text, but that's exactly what you want, right? For email, you don't care if somebody writes their email in capital or all lowercase. You really only care that yeah, you should be storing email case insensitive. Sorry, but we are not caring on we don't only care about the email. We also want username. Again, username would probably be case insensitive, and we want username to be required. So let's generate it like that, or let's add it into the migration like this. And that looks good to me. So we can run the migration, which we can do with mix actor migrate. And if that works well, which it did, it created the table users and users tokens and a couple of indexes. And if I look into the database, I've got a couple of functions here, which I don't care about. And I've got the users table with email, username, hash, password, confirm that, inserted that, updated that. And I've got users token, da 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 da. Now, if I look back into my project, I can see now two links being added to the register to the header. I've got register and login. Now, if I try to go through with this, it's actually not going to work because I specified the username as being not nullable. So we also need to adjust our code a little bit in order to facilitate for the username. So let's do just that. Let's start with the user schema here. I'm going to definitely need another field here, field username of type string. Then in the registration change set, we want to allow the form to pass the username. So I'm going to whitelist it in the cast call, and we're going to run some validation on the username as well. So let's create another method called validate username function. Probably this is not really a method. And validate username, into which we pass the change set. What we want to do, so change set, we want it to be required. We want it to be, let's say, longer than 2 characters. And we definitely want it to be unique. Which reminds me, gosh, we should have definitely created that as a unique index, right? So let's add it into the migration and let's recreate it. Was it actor drop or recreate? A reset, which is gonna drop the database and it's gonna run the migration again. Which at this point we don't care, we don't have any data, so I should have just added a unique index here. But oh well. And it's probably gonna fail because being accessed by other user, well, that's also a problem. But I should probably finish writing the thing here. So we're gonna do unsave validate unique first, which that basically validates uniqueness by doing a select statement, which yeah, it may work, but it brings the possibility of race condition. So then we're also gonna do unique constraint username, and that should get us going. If we run this again, being accessed by other users. Ooh, my application. Right. Here we go. So that's done. And if I look at the database again, we've got users, and this time the username should be, yes, it is unique. So That's a good start. We are also good here. So now we should be able to just adjust the login form. Now I don't remember actually where the login form is located, but it's going to be somewhere. User registration new. Let's say here, right? So let's add label, validate length. I made some mistake in the user. Yeah, that should be name. So, all right, let's add. Is it one called text input? I think. Username, and let's add error tag for username. All right. Now let's try register user and let's see if that works. I wanted to do one more thing because I remember that the password here needs to be 12 characters long, which I appreciate, but our users will definitely not. So let's do 8 characters minimum. Username here and password, super intelligent password here. Let's see if that worked. Oops, something went wrong. What did go wrong? Can't be blank. Username can't be blank. Well, it's not blank, but that just means I made a typo here, of course. So therefore, I was trying to pass usename, and that's not whitelisted. So let's try again. And that worked well. I'm now logged in. Now, technically, I'm not confirmed. Like you know, I got this confirmation thing, which in real production should be sent by email, but here in dev, it's just no. We don't have any way to send email from this instance right now. Let's just confirm myself like this, which it did. Right. I don't like this part, and actually, I don't really like the header. We have to do something about that one. But let's just we've got username, so why don't we use it? Why don't we replace this text with username? And that's gonna be somewhere in layout user menu, I believe. Yes, that looks like it. So let's replace that with username. Now, this is all fine and dandy, and we've got now the all of those things that you would want from your basic authentication system, changing email by actually confirming the new email, by sending email and getting some kind of confirmation link. The same thing for change password, I think. We've got all of those things like forgot your password, which sends you instruction to reset password. We've got things like keep me logged in for 60 days. Oh, that's nice. But one thing that is not nice is that we have made such changes that the tests that are provided by the authentication generator now will unfortunately no longer pass. But it's relatively simple, if I remember correctly, to fix them. So let's just spend a little bit of time on fixing those tests before we move on to the next task. The next task, by the way, is going to be the creation of chat rooms. And then the last task for today, I hope, would be the ability of sending and broadcasting a message in the chat room. And I hope we can do all of those today. The tests also need to be compiled, so that's going to take just a little bit of time. That should hopefully finish very, very soon. Now, the tests are located in the test folder. How unexpected. I think we are compiling the last couple of dependencies. This is definitely the last one. Here we go. Extension already exists. Okay, so let me just drop the database for test. Not very happy about the database already existing. All right, so we've got quite a few issues, 91 in particular. Haha, that's Yeah, quite a few. But yeah, again, I don't think this is gonna take too long to fix, so let's just spend a few minutes on testing this. So for example, we've got something to generate account fixture, but that again only accounts for having the email and not password. So let's also generate unique username, and let's say system unique integer as username, but let me just quickly check the system unique integer. What does it return? System unique integer. Yeah, that's kind of weird number, but maybe if I can specify as positive, yeah, that's kind of more normal number. So let's generate a positive integer here. Positive as our username, so it's going to be user and then some kind of random number. And then let's use that username to create our user. That looks fine. I wonder if that's already going to fix some of our tests. So we had 91 failures previously. Now we've got, yeah, only 9 left. Haha, that's nice. 90 issues or 80 issues already solved. Cool. A couple issues related to changing the length of the password, the minimum length of password. So yeah, that's expected. So let's fix that. So that is in accounts test. So let's search for 12 characters. We now have only 8, and our password is, let's change it to invalid. So this is less than 8, right? Yeah, I think so. Let's check again here. Let's do invalid. Invalid. And we're searching for 12 here. Again, one more time. Password invalid. Right, if I rerun the tests, we've got 6 failures. Cool. So what else? Account test, line 99. That definitely should assume that also username is required, right? So similar issues I can see with the password length in the user reset password control test. Wow, what a mouthful. User reset password controller test. 12 characters. So it should now complain about 8 only, and it should say short. Another is in user registration controller test. User registration controller test. That one also complaining about 12 characters, or no, it's actually complaining about It wants to see username, right? After probably successful registration, but it's now showing it wants to see email, but it's now of course only going to see username because we changed the header here, right? So that's breaking another test. Which line is that? Line 37. So let's assume that in the response is going to be username. The username is defined as unique username. And let's pass it into the fixture so that it's used during registration, right? I would now assume to see 3 failures left. Here we go, 3 failures left. For once, things are going well. So user settings controller test. User settings controller test. It's going to complain about too short password again. I would think so, but actually it is not. On line 54, what is valid user password? Well, that is definitely valid. User session control test, was it in settings? I'm in the wrong file. Haha. that explains a lot. So on the line 54, password should be at least 8 characters, and current password, new password is short. So let's see if we go down into 2 failures, and we do. So user registration controller test, user registration controller test. There's again another thing with 8 characters. And let's change the password to be only 5 so that we should trigger the issue. And there's another one, user session controller test. And that error message you can see is again related to the test expecting email, but we are now only showing the username. So let's assume, or let's assert for user.username. That should probably work just fine. Yeah, I think that should actually work. Let's see, and we've got 104 tests, no failures. And that's another cool thing that the generator does. It generates absolutely massive test suite for you. So even if you do some changes in the authentication system, and you should. That's what the generator is for, right? It's not some kind of framework that forces you into their way of thinking and their way of using it. No. This is your system, just kind of bootstrapped, right? So you should definitely make changes in it, like we have done here. But if you do, check your tests and make sure that they still pass, because the test suite is absolutely massive. So let's do add user registration and login. All right. Now the next thing, we're gonna use generator one more time, and that is to create our room. So again, we're gonna have chat rooms. You can enter and leave chat room, and when you enter a room, you can send a message to be visible for other users in the same chat room. So we're gonna use the generator here, but again, gonna heavily adjust what we're gonna get out of it. So let's do mix phx gen live, and we're gonna generate so first argument is gonna be context. Now context in this case is gonna be chat, and we're gonna generate a resource called room, store it in database table rooms, and we're gonna have room name of type string and description of type string. We're not gonna be storing who created the room, at least not for the time being. That can always be added later. And before I run the migrate, or actually migration is fine, but it tells you to add some kind of live routes into the router, and I can show you what happens when we do that. But I don't really like the default the routes that it gives us, so we're gonna adjust that a little bit. So we've got a couple of scopes here in the router file, and we are most interested in the scope that pipes through the require authenticated user, because we only want our authenticated users to be able to chat. So let's add it here, and the application on the right side already says that, hey, you don't have migration, so we can run migrate from console, but Phoenix really cares about your developer comfort, so we can just run the migrations from the web application itself. And now if I check the database, we should have the room stable as we do. We've got name, description as expected. Now if I go into /rooms, I can see the default thing generated by the live generator. And this is kind of amazing, right? So pay attention to the load times, because, and I would say pay attention to the URLs as well, but unfortunately I've got way too many. Let me just quickly go full screen. Yeah, okay, that's better. So if I click new room, it gives me like a model screen here. It changes the URL into rooms /new. And I don't know how much in detail I should go into LiveView and how much I can actually go, because I don't know anything. But if I refresh here, or if I go into /room/new, it directly goes into the model as kind of expected, right? And what's more interesting, if I now show the source code, let's search for the text new room, and you can see it is here. So even though, when I navigated from here, from the room's index page, I navigated into the model with JavaScript and WebSockets, but not JavaScript that I have to write. It's literally, this is not a like page reload. This is not a page reload. It's just through WebSockets, which maybe I can show. Fingers crossed. If I reload the page, it's the Phoenix server will be telling our browser how should the display change. So you can see, right? We are now on the index 4 and 11, right? And if I click the new room, I'm going to get 4 and 12. So 4 and 12 with the green arrow indicates what my browser told the server. And it did something probably like, hey, the user clicked on a button that changed the URL into rooms/new, right? Now, if I look at the 412 response, the server said, all right, I accept that. I understand. So please display this model. And this is basically the HTML code required to generate this model, right? Arrived through WebSockets, not like separate HTTP request, through the connection that was already open before. Absolutely wonderful, magical. And again, this is on the first load, it's server rendered. So again, if I go directly into the /room/new, I have the form rendered on the server. Therefore, if Google came here and this page was not hidden behind authentication, which it is, but if it was public page, Google would see, the Google bot would see the entire source code as which is preferred format for indexing, of course. So let's create our first room. And we've got the listing rooms. So the newly created room appears here, and we've got a traditional like edit button and the delete button, which no, we don't want to delete, and we've got the show button, which gets us to the details. And some of those we want, but some of those, let's adjust it now a little bit. Like the generator did a good job, thank you so much. But let's adjust it more to the use case. So, for example, I would want the room life to reside basically on the root route. Actually, I never tried it before, but I think that should just work fine, right? There should be no problem. I mean, once I disable the default one, the page life, this one, right? Should hopefully fall through. Right, and so now if I navigate directly to localhost at 4000, I get to room listing. Cool, wonderful. The new route is fine, but indexing from, editing from here, I'm not really interested in. On the other hand, the room's ID and the room's ID show edit, yeah, let's keep those in. So now, by the way, the root page will, of course, not work anymore because I deleted one of the routes that it refers to. So let's fix our view by going into room index, and let's delete the edit path. All right, show should be definitely renamed into enter. I'm gonna be entering a room, and delete. I guess we could keep it here for the time being. Nah, let's I think it's already on the detail anyway, isn't it? No, it's not. Well, it's fine. We can just comment it out, and I'm gonna decide later what to do with it. All right, we've got our very primitive but functional listing of rooms. So if I enter room, this one definitely doesn't look like anything that I would, I would be interested in. Also, I can adjust this here because we don't have edit action on the index template anymore. We've got only the new, which we still are interested in, so that people can create new room. And if I'm going to show template, well, the edit thing we're gonna keep so that we can actually edit the room from here. But basically, yeah, we don't really want any of those things here. So let's do some cleaning here. Can we display the room name? I think we should be able to, and we are able to. And let's think about the layout. Actually, let's not think about the layout because I'm just gonna get stupidly inspired by how it used to be in the chat rooms of old. So let's go some kind of flexbox, I would say. So we're gonna have, let's say, three rows. So not flexbox for out of the box, but let's have 3 rows. So 2 more, please. And in the first one, there's gonna be the flex thing. Room header, and I know that on one side I will want to display room title, and on the other side I'm gonna display the leave room link. So that is not gonna be called back, it's gonna be called leave. It's not called title, it's called name, room name. All right, cool. Now in the middle section, again, I will want to have, and maybe I don't even need to have flex. I'm thinking too complicated. I can just have column, right? And another column. Now that's gonna give me half, which I don't want, but and I also wanted to have the edit button. So let me copy that on, let's say, here. Probably edit, but more like, yeah, like that, like a normal link. Cool. And I would definitely want this leaf to float to the right side. And I would kind of want the column to be much smaller anyway. So there's like the phoenix.css file included by default, and it gives you some kind of things to start with. It's in some ways similar to Bootstrap, but very, very lightweight, really. But I think I've seen something like column slash, not slash, column dash something, which would allow me to create like a smaller columns. So I think there was column 10, yeah, like 10%, I think. So if I use that, definitely move my, oh, cool. That worked better than expected. This is 10%. All right, it's not on the right side, but it's kind of almost there. If I just did like, like that, it would definitely get properly aligned to the right side. Right. That's fine. Yeah, inline styles should not probably use them, I guess. I mean, then again, look at Tailwind CSS. But for this demo, it's fine. So in the middle section, I'm again gonna have 2 columns. I'm not sure if we're gonna get into the second column, which is gonna be list of present users. Actually, it's kind of simple. We'll see. And in the left part, I want to have room messages, right? And finally, in the bottom part, and let's span this one through the entire 100% width, we're gonna have some sort of field that would serve for enter messages. Right? So that's our layout. And thank you, generator, for getting us basically halfway there. Let's commit and let's start thinking about how to implement the message sending. So for messages, we're definitely going to need another database resource, right? And with Phoenix, you've got three types of, or three levels of generators, I suppose. You've got generator for migrations, which just gets you a database table as a result of the migration. Then you've got schema generator, which gets you migration and schema, which schema is like this sort of file. I go into room, which by the way, I should have probably done some kind of relation on the room here as well. Something like, validate length. Let's say name at least 5 characters, maybe let's say 4 characters. And description should be, I don't know, at least 10, maximum, I don't know, 140. Yes. All right, let's add up to the previous comment because that's still really related to rooms anyway. So this is the schema, and this the third level of generation is generation of context. Now the live generator basically operates on the live the live generator operates on the context level plus also templates. So I guess 4 levels really. So let's drop into the third level because we don't need live views for the messages now, but we definitely need the context. So let's do mix VHS gen context. And into the existing context of chat, let's generate new resource message. So in the messages table, let's have sender ID, which references users. Now I already have like recipient ID here for private messages in the future. Okay, let's keep that. When I was playing, it can either fill the recipient ID to indicate it's a private message to somebody, or it's a room ID, which is public message to room. Let's have text as the text of the message and data, which I haven't really thought about it. I just kind of feel like it may be needed in the future. So the generator warns you that you're generating into existing context, which in our case is fine. And when we refresh, we can just run the migration and we should be present with the messages table. All right, cool. Now, if I go back into my live view for the room, we're gonna need, so this is the actual code for the, I'm in the index, not in the show though. I should be definitely in the show file, which is the detail, right? So we've got a couple of, only a couple of functions here. We can already adjust some of those. For example, the page title for show action should be, well, it should not be showroom. It should be, I would say, the name of the room really. So let's change the order here. And let's assign the room into chat get from chat get room. And let's do page title as room name. Therefore, we don't need the helper methods here. And I did something that I shouldn't have. Unexpected token online 20. All right. Like that would probably work much better. All right, so we've got now the title of the room in the title, or the name of the room in the title. That's much better. And now let's also assign a couple of things. So when we fetch the room, we can say that the messages, at least initially, will be an empty array, which sounds like a reasonable assumption until we get, later on when we fetch the room history. And that means we can, in the template, we can say that for message from messages, we would want to generate some kind of message there. Let's say, I don't know, message.text probably. Right. And let's see if that rendering worked. If I fake it and I create some kind of struct here. Here we go. That's nice. So a rendering would be working perfectly fine. Well, maybe paragraph is not really what we want. All right, better. But yeah, we're going to be definitely starting with an empty array of messages. Right. Now in the bottom part, we would want to have some kind of form. And in that form, we're going to have text field. But we don't have the change set yet. So let's think about that one though. It's not form 4. Right, so this is gonna be the time when I'm gonna drop into my old code and I'm gonna see how I did that before. And I just don't have enough parameters there, I suppose. So phx validate. Well, maybe not sure we're gonna need. Phx submit for sure. Send message. Undefined text field. Text input. That's what it should be. Change set is not available. Well, now we are getting somewhere. Of course, the change set is not available. So let's create an assigned change set method. Take socket as an input, and it's gonna return socket. But this time with change set defined as so we're also gonna need message first. I'm gonna assign a message into the socket, and we are fine with like an empty message. And then we're gonna have Into the change set, we're gonna pass a message with empty attributes as a change for that mess. And now I know that my explanation is getting kind of not as comprehensive as before, because I'm sorry, I'm trying to focus on the code as well. So let me just write it down, and then I'm going to try to unpack it a little bit. And that looks like it worked. All right, so first into the socket, we assign a message, which is going to be an empty message or like empty struct. Now, if I show what the message looks like, well, it looks roughly like this. So it has data ID inserted at recipient, room, sender, text, blah blah blah. Just like when we were defining the database table, right? And then we're also gonna assign a change set where from the socket, and this is the pattern matching I was talking at the very beginning, right? From the socket, we're gonna look at the assign struct, and from there we're gonna pull the message, and we're gonna assign change set as a message change set between the existing message, but completely empty message, and changes which for now we've got none. And now I'm thinking, into the message we can already actually assign a couple of things. We can assign sender and we can assign a room ID here, right? So how would we define room ID and how would we define sender ID? So room ID, we can get if we first assign the room into the socket. So let's change the order here one more time. Let's get nil there for now, but let's try to replace those, right? So we've got the room in the socket already, so let's pull it out. So assigns room that equals socket. So room ID is going to equal room.id, and sender ID. Now that's going to be a little bit more tricky, but I think if you look into the session here, you're gonna see something interesting here. So we've got user token being passed in the session, which why don't we get the user out of that, right? So we need to check if we are connected, I think. And in case we are connected to the socket, and only then we are interested in pulling the, what's it called, user token out of the session. Will this still work? And well, when I stop making mistakes, right? And in that case, I should be able to basically gonna return the socket unchanged in case we are not connected. But if we are connected, we are going to return socket into which we're gonna assign current user as defined as there's method get user by session token. That's exactly what we are looking for. And now, more interestingly, in the handle params, I should already be able to inspect the socket and I should be able to see the current user already already assigned into the, and yes, I can see that. I'm there with my email address. Nice. So therefore, I can also pull out the current user out of the socket and send sender ID as current user.id. Move the inspect here. Some sort of mistake, I suppose. Sign message. I guess that unless I made typo, which looks like I did not, then that would probably mean that at this point the current user is not there yet, unfortunately. Let's have a look at it through inspection. Yeah, it looks like it was called twice. One time the room was assigned, but the current user was not there yet, so therefore, is it about the connected thing? Maybe that's not. That was maybe not the correct call there. Let's try refreshing the page again. Okay, looks like I refreshed here and the current user was already ready, even though the socket wasn't connected. All right, so easier for us. Calculate it back now. I should be able to use the previous code, I think. And that looks like a success. Cool. Let's do a sanity check. And I'm gonna output yeah, I have the assignment there correctly. And if I also look at message.sender ID, that's 1, and message room ID, well, that's also going to be 1. Unfortunately, that one is the same value, but yeah, looks like I've got message, and then that means that the message is created with the things that I don't want the user to manipulate in any sort of way, but I want the user to be able to supply the text here, right? So that means we should now be able to implement the send message event. And now how that's going to work? So if I try to submit it now, basically the entire page is going to crash. If I look here, it's yeah, definitely crashing because I have not implemented the event send message, right? So let's get on that. Implementation true, and let's define a method called handle event. The event we called send message, and it's also sending params and socket, right? So let's inspect the params, because we are mostly interested in those, and we definitely need to return something. We need to return a tuple of no reply socket. Right, so if I send text, I can see that I got CSRF token and I've got a message text. All right, cool. So I can pull that message out of parameters, and that is message. Let's call it attributes. Right. And now I should be able to call my chat create message. Create message, however, already wants it wants attributes, and it operates on empty message. I already have kind of prepared message, right? I already have this one with the room ID and send ID, which I kind of like this approach. I don't know if that's the correct one, honestly, but I would rather supply a change set here actually. So I'm gonna say that I'm gonna operate on the message that I supplied. I'm gonna apply a change set to it and insert it to repository. I think that's gonna work slightly better. So that's gonna be, I'm gonna also pull the message out of the socket. Assigns message equals socket. Got a nice reformatting here, and I'm gonna call create message with the argument message and the second argument attributes. And we're gonna see if it stores something in database. Hello, my first message, question mark. Well, it did not seem to crash immediately. I don't see any errors in here either. I can't really see insert, but let's check the database. Yeah, there's no message. Something then probably did not go as expected. So let's see where we failed. Chat create message. Well, that can end with, yeah, two possible options, either okay or error for sure. So let's check the output of that call. That is an error. Data cannot be blank. Validation required. Okay, that's a stupid error because data should not be not only required, but also not really allowed to be sent. That's something that I will probably sometimes fill later myself. So with that in mind, first message. Data cannot be blank. But I literally just maybe I need to completely refresh the socket. That looks much better. I can see insert here. And there's the first message here. Cool. I've got the sender ID and the room ID populated without the user ever being able to send to change that in any way. There's like no way of doing that. Now the create message returns right. It returns okay or error, but for the sake of quick demonstration, really, let's assume that's always gonna succeed. That's a dangerous assumption, isn't it? But all right. Yeah, I'm kind of happy that we've got messages stored. But now let's do the real-time thing, right? Let's and we are of course not displaying the not displaying the messages anywhere for now, but let's solve both of those issues at roughly the same time. I'm gonna rearrange the Windows a little bit here. And let's simulate a second user in a moment. So when I create the message, right, I would want after that that insert succeeds, then I would want to broadcast that message through the PubSub system in Phoenix, the publish subscribe, so that other browsers or other clients can or will get the message in absolutely real time, right? I'm thinking that maybe let's what's the correct approach here? We can do a whiff call, I suppose. Like so. Phoenix pops up broadcast, you're gonna be broadcasting into convo that pops up, I believe. Is it convo pops up? We don't have pops up. We do convo pops up. The second attribute, what's that going to be? Second attribute, topic, message, and dispatcher. So topic is going to be rooms, message, room ID, and what was the last thing? Message. So as a message, let's do tuple of two things. Message sent is going to be the event name, and the message is going to be what the actual message was, right? We can probably wrap this into some kind of helper method. So we're going to be broadcasting message that was sent into the first argument, going to be message room ID message. Like so. And then we're gonna have like opposite call, right? Where we're gonna be doing phoenix.popsap subscribe. And we want to subscribe to convo popsap, and the topic is going to be rooms, room ID. Now this looks like a necessary case of duplication, so topic for room ID, maybe that one is even going to be public. And yeah, that looks fine to me. So we should be able to call the subscribe to messages from our chat room once I join. Let's try that. Subscribe to messages room.id. Well, it did not fail. That's a good thing. But it's probably going to crash terribly when I send something. Yeah, it did, because I'm again missing something. I'm missing a handle info method this time. So instead of handling event here, I'm handling info sent by the broadcasting system. And now what are we getting here as arguments? We are getting our tuple, I suppose. And what's the second one? I'm not seeing it. Socket, of course. Yeah, okay. So we are going to be handling and again, we're going to be using pattern matching here to only handle the event message sent. Message socket. Do reply socket. But let's inspect the message. Let's see if I can get the message here. Yeah, I got it. Now, it doesn't contain all of the things that I'm definitely going to be needing, like sender ID is nice, but I would really want sender as the entire user. But that's fine. That's something that we can adjust later. So if I get a message, well, then there should be nothing simpler, hopefully, than to assign it into the socket, right? So that's going to be gonna be joining to some kind of list, so you're gonna need to fetch the list of current messages as well, right? So I'm gonna assign into socket messages as where are we going to assign it? Probably at the end, right? Actually, let's do it in some kind of variable here. So we've got the array of existing message plus the new message. But in Elixir, you should really be only assigning things at the beginning of an array, I suppose. So messages. Let's only take like first 25, let's say. But again, I think that just means that the messages are going to be appearing on the top, which is not really what any reasonable person would actually want. But at any rate, we should be able to, yeah, we can send a message. And yeah, unfortunately, it does appear on the top. But I'm gonna have a look at how I saw that before again, because I did run into this. Row message sent. So I was assigning it at the end, I suppose. All right. Well, I guess in that kind of small array, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. All right, let's do it like that. But now, more interestingly, I'm gonna be doing the last thing because I'm gonna need to end the stream for today, at least. But let's register a second account. And let's see the magic of Phoenix in action, because Face should be set up for something really nice. I'm going to be sending a message from the second browser window. And like a charm, it appeared for both of those users. Well, that's a real-time chat without Firebase, which is a good thing in my books. All right, though. As you've probably seen from the notification a couple of minutes ago, I'm definitely gonna have to end the stream for today anyway, and already going 1 hour and a half. So that's quite a long stream anyway. But yeah, did not get as far as I wanted to. I really wanted to populate the list of present users and at least show the usernames, but that's something that I can show in the next stream whenever I have the chance. If there's gonna be any interest in that. And again, sorry, towards the end, I know I was definitely focusing more on thinking about the code and writing the code rather than commenting the code. So not sure if it was that easy to follow. Well, I'm rather sure it was not easy to follow. So sorry about that one. But it's the best I could do. Sorry. Right though. Have a wonderful rest of the day, slash good night, slash good morning, whatever time it is for you. And maybe see you sometime again. And have fun with Elixir and Phoenix because it's a wonderful language and wonderful framework.